Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live. I'm Mike King, and I'm on my own tonight. The back office, part of the office is out filming something right now, and the other part is at a dance recital for my little granddaughter, which I can't be at because we've had a little bit of a family hiccup here, and some of us are stuck at home. But I could not pass up the chance to jump on with this great news that we've heard today with the filing of an indictment against Lori Daybell. And I'm going to follow all the advice I've been given by the back office. We're going to just kick back and answer some questions, talk a little bit. Thank you so much for jumping in. It's great to see you. Wendy Grimstead, thank you for being here. Karen, Sharon McBride, I didn't give the mods any notice at all that we were jumping in, so my apologies once again to them. Liz McCrae. Let's see here. Wendy says the back office is good about slowing the chat down if it gets moving too fast. The back office said they would try to check from their phones and bail me out if I blow it or if things are going too crazy. So we'll hope that happens. And Rebecca Davis, Miss Angelap, let's see, Pearl Jar, Stace on the case. Great to see you, Maui girl. Oh, good. So we're getting some of the mods in here, and I really appreciate that. And again, I am just so sorry. I just this thing. I was so thrilled to hear about this today and kind of got things settled down here at home and thought I'd take a little time, even though it's later at night than I generally do things. So Karen, Canada, how you doing? Great to see you. Linda Petrovich. It's just so nice. Good to see Mom's Jeans and Crying Scenes here. Yeah, let's chat a little bit about this. I mean, here it is. A bunch of you have been emailing me about this, so I thought, heck, let's jump on and talk about this thing. Lori Daybell was indicted today. Well, actually, the indictment came down last Thursday for conspiracy to commit murder in the death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And I'd really like to encourage you to go back and look at some of the previous videos that we've done in regard to this entire case. You're going to find a number of videos on Charles Vallow's death. And this was back when Chris was on with me. We actually went in and we kind of picked that case apart. And if you remember, we said multiple times, just wait for the other shoe to drop because this one was going somewhere, we believed. And if you remember, I think we were the first ones to actually talk about the fact that there were 4 bullet casings fired at Charles Vallow in his home in Chandler. We focused on the bat and we concentrated on the location of the bat, Charles's body. Go back and watch that video. It's really good. But the thing that was so important to us, that was kind of this aha moment that this was a homicide, not a self-defense case, was that there were bullet casings fired from the weapon, bullet casings that were both on the left-hand side of Charles's body and on the right-hand side. And if this was simply trying to stop an assailant, that was really peculiar. It also was interesting, the location in which the homicide occurred and the way in which the body was positioned. Everything just seemed too perfect. And now we're learning that, in fact, it was at least allegedly planned out by Lori and Alex in this case. The indictment alleges that Lori conspired with her brother Alex to murder her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. And I'm going to just kind of go through a timeline to catch up on a couple of things. But you remember, Charles was killed on July 11th, 2019 in Chandler, Arizona. And I'm going to kind of just take some time and maybe answer some questions if I see things that I can answer, and we'll just chat a little bit tonight and enjoy each other's company. I need to do this more. Louisiana girl, hi there. It's nice to see you. Let's see. So, DDS, I'm sorry, Honesti. We're going to read through we're going to actually look at Charles Vallow. I don't know if that's what you meant and you just had a typo there, but we're going to look at the indictment here in a moment and chat about that. In fact, heck, let's pull it up. We'll just talk about it right now real quickly. So in the indictment, this is the key thing here. Count one, Lori Vallow, on or about July 11th, 2019, with the intent to promote or aid the commission of an offense, to wit, first-degree murder, agreed or conspired with Alex Cox that at least one of them would engage in the conduct constituting the offense of first-degree murder, and then cites the criminal code cases from the Arizona Code. States the state further alleges that the offense charged in this count is a dangerous felony. Yeah, murder is a dangerous felony because the offense involved the discharge, use, or threatening exhibition of a gun, a deadly weapon, a dangerous instrument, and the intent or the intentional knowing that it could inflict serious physical bodily injury upon Charles Vallow, and then is signed. So that's the indictment. It's short. We hopefully will see an arrest affidavit and, of course, discovery at some point. But keep in mind, this one's going to be a little bit wacky too, because Arizona has now shown a few of their cards, but they don't have to do anything now until Lori's criminal cases in Idaho are resolved. So I suspect we're going to see a big old curtain drop down on this thing, and we're going to all sit back and wait as this thing unfolds in Idaho first. So we got to get Lori has to get through the mental health counseling stage, and then she has to then move into the trial phase. And once that's all completed, and again, remember, she was charged with 7 counts, including the murder of Joshua JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell. And for those of you who might have been hanging around with us for a long time, just think back to when I kind of tipped my hand a little bit that this would be very indicative of a serial killer. And, I'm still not comfortable with Joseph Ryan, even though he's been ruled as a natural cause death. Too many things there. I reached out to Annie Cushing tonight to see if she wanted to jump on, but I didn't give her any time at all. So I'll just keep watching text to see if Annie joins. But I don't think we can forget about Joseph Ryan. And then, of course, we now know that there's an alleged homicide with Charles Vallow. We know there are alleged homicides with JJ, with Tylee, and Tammy. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to include Alex in there. Even though he was ruled as a natural death, I think they've got to go back and look at these things a little more seriously and see if they missed something. And that equates out to, if in fact she is instrumental in each of those, a serial killer case. And we don't have many women serial killers, so she could join the ranks of Warnos and others, and we can chat on that. Well, let me look at some comments here for a moment, and we'll decide what we're going to do next, because I want to go back and kind of retrace a couple of things and paint a picture for all of you. Tanya Moat, great to see you. Alicia, Marcia Stansberry, Louisiana Girl, good to see you back. Garden Girl, great to see you. Thank you. Christy Dawson, Dyson's Crazy Adventure. Somebody looks like they're fairly close to me. Tina Osborne. I'm not seeing any definite questions popping up, but I'll keep looking for those. Keep It Spooky says, I question Alex's death too, because Chad gave him a blessing right before he died. In faith-based communities, blessings are not an unnatural thing. The question becomes, I think, was the word blessing a code word for putting the mark on somebody? And I guess we'll figure that out as time goes on and maybe evidence becomes available. This is an interesting one, and we continue to wonder about the elderly neighbor who also suddenly died, and I suspect, Darlene, that people are looking into that. If you haven't subscribed to Profiling Evil, would you please consider doing so? Subscribe and hit the like button and all of that stuff. And thanks to everybody for all of the support you've been giving us. And thanks for understanding with me bailing last night on choir practice. Again, taking care of some family issues and got things settled down and people in bed now. And so it gave me some time to jump on tonight. But and then I'll keep watching. If I miss your question, just know you can super chat. Always appreciated, but it also kind of flags it and makes it harder for me to miss it. So we'll just watch these and see. Let's see. Glam Dolly says, yeah, I think Charles' last moments were horrific. As soon as he saw Alex, he knew he'd walked into a trap. And then, of course, he was murdered in front of his children. So, that's a good question was he truly murdered in front, or did Lori get them out? If you remember, he was coming to take JJ to school, and then he finds out Lori had JJ. Now, there is the discussion and the story, whether it's accurate or not is what I question about. We were in there fighting, and I scrambled out of the house with the kids, and good old Uncle Alex, saved the day. But we'll have to kind of wait and see if more information in that regard unfolds. Let's see here. Boo Boo Bear, great to see you. Lindell Johnson. So I think what I'll do is I wanted to kind of go over, repaint the picture of this timeline, just to put it in your minds again. And so let me just pull this up, and we'll talk here for a second. But let's go back. Chad marries Tammy. He's working as a grave digger, and you can go back and find all this. She marries Lori marries Nelson Yanes. Then they divorce. She then finds the new love of her life shortly after that, marries William Lagolia. And it's in that marriage that their first child, and I was going to say his name, but I'm not going to, comes. They then divorce, and then we see her move on to Joseph Ryan. And in that marriage with Joseph Ryan, Joseph adopts the child. And this is when we see all of this confusion and gobbledygook coming out about her, Lori accusing him of assaulting the children even sharing some of that testimony. And having investigated those kinds of crimes for so many years, the question becomes, did in fact that really happen? Were the children coached? I don't know the answers to that. Now, the son, I think, has mentioned on occasion that he does believe it happened, and I certainly am not going to discount in any way his comments on that. Anyway, but nonetheless, she's now married to Joseph Ryan, and they have a new baby, and that's when Tylee is born, and then their marriage starts to have trouble. Joseph files for divorce. And this is where I think things kind of get really interesting. They divorce in May of 2005. And it's during this time now she's falling for Charles Vallow and marries him. But she doesn't like what's going on with Joseph Ryan. And if you remember when Annie Cushing was on Profiling Evil, and we kind of walked through all of that, it becomes really interesting because we see Alex then start to become involved. And I talk about this a lot in regard to ritualistic crimes, that what I've seen happen and what I really worry about, I worry more about the follower of someone who thinks they're getting inspiration from God than the person getting it. And many times it's that follower who wants to prove their allegiance to their God that they become the more dangerous one. In this case, I think Lori, I think Chad become the voice of God in their head, that people need to be eliminated. Alex becomes the henchman. He becomes the arm of God, or the one who is so special that he is called on to execute and carry out the plan of murder. Well, Lori marries Vallow, and then we see at this point, Cox goes back and Alex assaults her previous husband. And if you remember, and go back and look again at those videos or just do some work online, but it's during that period of time that Cox gets convicted of aggravated assault. And while he's in prison, he's trying to recruit other inmates to go tune up Joseph Ryan. Tune up means beat up or hurt or injure. This is serious business. And that's why it bothers me so much that later down the road, because there are financial wins possible, that all of a sudden Joseph Ryan dies. And I think Annie has done a beautiful job of kind of laying out that entire picture. Well, Charles and Lori then adopt Charles' nephew, JJ, and bring him into their home. And, you know, all accounts say that that Lori was a good mom. Even Charles' sister and brother-in-law say she was a good mom at first. I've talked before about mental illness. We had Dr. Salerno on a few nights ago talking about mental illness. I don't know the level of that in her life. We know that there are court documents that suggest her father had schizophrenia. Her brother-in-law talked about Stacy Cope having schizophrenia, and of course she died from medical reasons associated with her diabetes. But there was clearly mental illness when she's dressing up like boys, telling people she's a boy, other kinds of things. And then all of a sudden we see Lori getting involved in this. Does the fact that you're mentally ill give you the right to commit homicide? Absolutely not. And without question, the efforts that Lori and Chad went to hide all of this stuff, to plan and prepare, are all indications that they knew that murder was against the law, and yet they chose to do it anyway, if in fact these allegations are correct. And, you know, always we have to be so careful to say, we're not saying they did it. We're saying it's alleged, and you can make that decision up on your own. Well, let me just pause here for a second to say again, thanks so much for jumping on. I don't generally do these lives, and I really am running without a safety net, without the back office here to bail me out and pop up questions. Thank you to our mods who are in the room. I am so grateful. Louisiana girl, Maui girl, Stace on the case. Thank you. It just really is appreciated. Put your questions up. I'll try to watch for those and pop them up. You can super chat and they'll be flagged only because they change color. And we certainly do appreciate the support financially. But let's get back to this. Please hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to Profiling Evil. But now we have Charles and Lori adopting. And it's this point when Lori reads Chad Daybell's book, Standing in Holy Places, and she becomes obsessed with this guy. Now, we know of all the conversations that are going on with Melanie and others, and we're hearing how she's really spun up about this guy. It's at the same period of time that I think Chad starts seeing there's this groundswell about him. And I don't know about you, but I listen to him speak and I watch him interact, and I think, what on earth are people seeing in this guy? But somehow he is pulling people in left and right, and people are flocking to hear him talk. They're flocking to get his counsel, to read his books, all of this crazy stuff. And Lori Vallow is no exception. She is captivated by him. Well, they work it out so that she can go and see him. It's about this time that Joseph Ryan unexpectedly dies. Myocardial infarction is the reason for the death. The thing that is so tragic in this case is Lori responds. She is pretty ineffectual by all accounts. She lets, I think, Annie know a few days after the fact by text. I believe she even tells the kids by text, if I can remember right. And please correct me, and I know you will. There's just so much with this case that just kind of whacks your brain. But we now have Joseph Ryan dying. And it's at that point that Tylee starts getting some Social Security, and there are some finaglings that I haven't been able to quite ferret out how it all comes together. But I suspect that there was money that Lori was trying to attach to care for the kids, and I don't believe that it all worked out the way that she wanted. It's now a few months after, and Lori does her first podcast with Daybell, this Preparing a People. And holy cow, if you haven't listened to those podcasts, I mean, these people are sharing their personal experiences with deity and all kinds of things, and people are really listening. We just recently heard even that it went as far as saying, I'm going to quote scripture to justify that you can actually take a life. And so we see some really weird things starting to ramp up. And again, this is pretty consistent in my experience with these psychopathic personalities, especially when religion's involved. And I'm going to do something else shameless here. I'm going to plug my book, Deceived. So I'm going to pop this out for just a second. Folks, I cover a lot of this stuff in this book, Deceived. It's about religious fanaticism and how that is turned to crime. If you're interested, you can get this book on Amazon. I think they even have a deal going right now on Kindle. You can get it for like $2 or something. The paperback is pretty inexpensive, or you can get the hardbound copy direct from Profiling Evil, and you can get that signed if that's something that's intriguing to you or not. Let's see, Leak Mom 71, thank you so much. Do you think Lori was aware of the new charges before she went to the treatment center? I would bet money, Leak Mom, that she knew something was coming down the pike. And I don't think she knew that just recently. I think she's known for some time the net was closing in, because I suspect Chandler PD made a couple of runs at her to try to interview her. I suspect she probably lawyered up. And then, of course, as this thing started getting hotter and hotter, I would say, yeah, I think she probably knew it was coming. So thank you. And thanks for that super chat. So let me look at, just see if there's a couple of other questions here. Let's see. I like this one, Dreamcom. I feel sorry for any man caught in her web. I know. Don't you wonder what Chad Daybell was thinking when this thing started to unravel? I don't know. I guess you can. I kind of find humor in some things that's like, holy cow, what have I done? And who was worse? I mean, I'm going to look for your comments below, but which one was the worst? I mean, gas and a huge old flame somehow made it together, and these two ignited, and boy, did things start to spin out of control. It's amazing. Well, a bunch of you folks have jumped on. Thanks for jumping on. This is Profiling Evil. Obviously, we're talking about Tammy Daybell and the new indictment that was handed down Thursday. It was finally released and announced today in Arizona, charging, I'm sorry, Tammy, charging Lori Daybell, Lori Norene Cox, name husband, Ryan Vallow Daybell, charging her with homicide in murdering Charles Vallow in his home in Chandler, Arizona. And even though Alex was the gunman, she is being charged with collaborating with him and conspiring to commit murder. And this is something that we thought would happen eventually. In fact, this is probably a great point to just bring up something to just remind you of. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the Profiling Evil channel. And just remind you that if you want to binge on the Daybell case, you can go back. If you just go down to the content tab on the left-hand side, and then go into, to the playlist tab on the left side, and then go down to the Lori and Chad Vallow list. You'll see the videos that we've done on this. The thing that I'd really like to bring to your attention are there are a couple of things. This analyzing Chad Daybell and Lori Daybell using the risk continuum was actually the very first make that a little bit bigger, was the very first video I think I did at Profiling Evil. And I got chewed out by a few of you thinking it was clickbait. So hopefully we've hung in long enough for you to realize we're not about clickbait, but we sure took some hits in that first one. But the thing that gets really interesting is we talk about, there's a great video with Chris and me and Linda from It's a Crime. But the one on the bat is really interesting because we tear apart that crime scene where Charles was killed. So I think you would find some good things in there. We then explore the body cam video. And then this one is the one that update number 2 and part 2, where we tear apart the shooting and we actually look at where the shell casings were ejected from the weapon, why some were on one side of the body, some on the other. Why was the body laying in the position it was laying? Things that just bothered us as investigators. And so go back and look at that and see if it's of interest, but it's a great place for you to explore the background on this case. And then we go into it even further. In fact, that was the first time we had Dr. Salerno on, and we look at the malachite poisoning, and we look at each of the autopsies individually. We explored why Joseph Ryan's autopsy was the way it was. Why was Alex's the way it was? And some of the things that bothered us in the arrest affidavit information or the search warrant information in each of these cases as we go through. So go back and look at that. And please, would you consider subscribing to Profiling Evil? Just go down and hit that subscribe button. And I saw the mods were saying it'd be nice to get a like. That would be nice if you want to hit a like button there. It helps us a lot. And I'll look in here. Oh, Jackie, thank you so much. She's read Deceived twice already, and we'll read it again. That's awesome. Thank you. I'll remember that. That's very kind of you. All right. Let me see if there are other questions. I want to get back to the timeline here. Let's see. Carrick in Canada says, Melanie Gibbs said in an interview, CNL go into their portal, say a blessing, and poof, a number of zombies die. Do you remember that? I don't know if you caught the production on this case on TV a few nights ago, but I did like the part where Lori got mad because Chad wasn't hearing stuff in the portal, and he was able to quickly instruct her of how the zombies can sometimes stop that. Andy, thank you so much. You are very kind. So let's jump back into this timeline for a minute. So now Charles starts saying, "Hey, Lori's goofy," and he files for divorce, and then he changes his mind, and from everything that we can determine, he changes his mind because he's really trying to figure out how to work this thing out. And I think he really was smitten with Lori, and then of course really frightened by her as this thing moved to a conclusion. So I wanted to listen to the 911 tape for a minute when
20 minutes, 19 seconds.
911, where is your emergency?
Hi, I need an ambulance to... Yes.
Why do you need an ambulance?
I have a older male, a middle-aged male.
He is breathing?
Yes, he's breathing, but very, very highly breathing.
Okay, let me transfer the message, or the medics. Do not hang up.
Okay.
Is this due to a
Medical, what is the address of your emergency?
Go over with it.
Caller, are you on the line? Hello, is
Hello?
anyone there?
Yes, this is it. I'm here.
Okay, you're for...
I want to just pause there for a minute. Now, we all have had the opportunity to hear a lot of 911 tapes with TV and social media the way it is. I've been to a lot of homicide scenes, and the commotion and the adrenaline in those kinds of cases is really interesting. This was one of the first things that struck me, is how calm Alex is in the course of this, and really how ineffectual he is. In fact, as this goes on, and the telecommunicator, the dispatcher, tries to give him instruction on how to perform CPR and life-saving measures on Charles, you can hear Alex kind of saying, it's really not that important to me. What really was disturbing to me was the way he looked when he left the house. But let's play this 911 tape a little further.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, what is the emergency?
I have a older male here named Alex. He just passed out here on my bathroom.
Oh
Okay,
my
is he
goodness.
awake right now?
I'm so sorry. I have grabbed the wrong 911 tape. This is actually Alex, his death, and Zulema's son calling. So please forgive me. That's an old guy moment, I guess. So let me give you what happened in the 911 call, and then go back and get that. You can watch that on your own or listen to that. Cox gets on and he says, yeah, he tried to hit me with a bat, so I had to shoot him to defend myself. The dispatcher says, you need to get down and start CPR. And he's saying, I don't think I can do that. And then he feigns that he is in fact doing it, as she's giving him compression instructions, and says, yeah, I'm doing this. One of the first things that struck me, and if you go back and watch the videos that I talked about a moment ago, you'll be able to catch those, was that as soon as he walked out and sat on the curb with police, the first thing I wanted to see was his hands and his chest, because if you go to a traumatic chest wound homicide like this was, and you are doing chest compressions, this is kind of the gooey, gory part, but you can't be doing chest compressions with holes in the chest without there being spray and other residue and evidence on the body. His hands had no blood on them. His clothing had no blood on them. His pants didn't have any blood, where you naturally would, as you're standing up, maybe put your hand on your thigh or something. It was clear from the very beginning that forensically there were things that didn't match up with what was being given as eyewitness testimony. And we talk a lot about these forms of evidence as we go through these cases, but that was really important. So I apologize for not having the right thing there, because that was really critical. So let's go on. So Alex makes this 911 call and announces that he's killed Charles. And again, I don't know how you get past him so calmly walking out to the curb to meet responding officers, and then exclaiming that it was a self-defense homicide. With today's news and the suspicions that you've all had, it really played out today. Go back and listen to even Lori, if you remember, when she and Tylee are sitting on the curb next to their vehicle after the homicide, learning that her husband had been killed. And again, it just doesn't make sense, because at that point she giggles and says, "Hey neighbors, welcome to the neighborhood." And I just was shocked by that. Then of course, all of the testimony from the investigators that interviewed her and Tylee after that event, driving them to the police station and back, and the way the conversation was going, it all was inappropriate in comparison to what normally would happen. Now, did that mean that they had something to do with it? Absolutely not. But it certainly was inappropriate and odd to the investigators. So attorneys in Maricopa County have now filed and said that Lori Vallow, Daybell, conspired to kill Charles with Alex. And they said very clearly it was going to be one of them or the other, Lori or Alex, that would kill him. And Alex, like I said before, like he has many times before, chose to be the arm of Chad's revelation. Because if you remember, Chad came up with this revelation to Lori. And again, who was the gas and who was the flame? I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see how these two wacky minds came together. But Chad's revelation was that both he and Lori would lose their spouses in the near future, making it possible for them to get together. That's just the kind of God that they believed in, that would help them put this all together. Well, it was shortly after that, after Charles dies, that Lori packs the kids up and moves to Rexburg near Chad. And then, of course, we see things start to unfold. The trip to Yellowstone. We see the children disappear. We find their bodies discovered in the pet cemetery in Chad's backyard in Rexburg, Idaho. And true to Revelation, it's about this time that Tammy Daybell also ends up dying. And I can't imagine the pain that Chad and Lori were going through, because it would take them nearly 3 weeks to fall in love and marry and be in Hawaii together. I mean, it's just so maddening when you think of this thing. And I wonder about all the collateral damage. Their poor children, Chad's children, Lori's children, Kay and her husband. I mean, all of them are sitting and suffering as these two go off and create their life together. Well, I liked what the Maricopa County prosecutor, Alistair Adel, said. I appreciate the tremendous number of hours the dedicated officers of the Chandler Police Department have invested, and my office is equally committed to bringing those responsible for Charles Vallow's death to justice. Well, in those months that followed Vallow's death, Daybell, Lori Vallow Daybell to be, moves to Rexburg, gets Tammy dies, the children die. And if you remember, I think it was Tammy died in October 19th of 2019. Joshua and Tylee disappear before that. And the belief is that Tylee was executed first, and then Joshua. And then, of course, they're buried in that grave behind the house. The neighbor is a really interesting thing. Maybe someday we'll learn more about that neighbor. And then now remember that it was just a short time ago, May, the Fremont County grand jury came back with an indictment against both Lori and Chad on multiple charges, including first-degree murder for Tammy Daybell, Tylee Ryan, and Joshua J.J. Vallow. And Chad and Lori are also facing other charges in relationship to the destruction, alteration, the concealment of the kids' bodies, those things. Now, Chad is moving forward for trial. Lori's case is stayed. This morning, I put up a quick video about the fact that she's being moved to a mental health facility in Idaho. And we were theorizing which one it most likely would be. I believe it's probably going to be Blackfoot. And that her mental health is in question. She convinced a judge that she wasn't, well, her attorney and a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, convinced the judge that her mental health was in question, that she wasn't competent to stand trial. The court automatically gave a 90-day window for her to go to be tested, to be evaluated, treated, and hopefully returned in 90 days to stand trial. If, and I think it's doubtful that she comes back in 90 days ready to stand trial, even if she's ready right now and putting on an act, she's probably going to buy that next window of time, which is 6 months, 180 days before she has to come back. But the good news is Idaho does not have a guilty by reason of insanity, or not guilty by reason of insanity plea in Idaho. So she's not getting out of it. She's going to have to face it someday. But just think about, for instance, even like Hinckley, who shot President Reagan. He was able to ride that wave for an awfully long time. So who knows what will happen. This thing is kind of goofy, and we'll see where it goes. So if we were to recap everything, we go back to 2001. Lori's been through 2 marriages already, and she finally marries Joseph Ryan in 2001. They then have Tylee. They have Colby. I think somebody put it in the chat earlier, so I figured we may as well call it out. And then they file for divorce. That marriage makes it about 3 years. It's another 12 or 14 years before Joseph dies of a heart attack. But during that time, Lori marries Vallow. Vallow's executed. Lori and Chad link up, and they get married. And then, of course, the kids start dying, and Tammy starts dying. And thankfully now the state has come back from Arizona, and they've charged and said, we're going to charge for Charles's death. So let's look at a couple of questions. Mary Rose, when we hear how Chad killed Tammy, we'll get a clue what they do to make murders look like natural causes. That's really very insightful, Mary. Thank you. It will be interesting to see if something like malachite, again, we keep going back to why was that ring, the wedding rings, malachite, and so important. We had Dr. Salerno on a few nights ago, again, talking about the dangerous properties found in malachite and how quickly it can kill someone. So that will be really interesting. In fact, we'll just pop this up. Louisiana girl says, I believe the malachite has a role in this. And that's what we were talking about the other night. So yeah, thanks for popping that up. Let's see here. Hey folks, thanks for jumping on. I mean, I hope when we get together with the back office, you'll let them know that I actually survived this without them, so that when they start asking for pay raises in Diet Dr. Peppers and stuff, I can hold out and negotiate a little longer with them. If you're not subscribed to Profiling Evil, would you please consider doing so? We'd love to have you as part of the family. You'll get releases of information as we put it out. I actually was going to try to cut a video tonight on Summer Wells' mother talking to the press yesterday. A lot of people are theorizing about that. I have some different opinions. I also researched all of the registered sex offenders and came up with 4 who drive red trucks, and I'm going to post up that and talk about that a little bit, but it might be tomorrow or the next day before we talk about that. And if you folks didn't get a chance to watch the video a couple of nights ago on Sophie Elliott, the beautiful little gal from New Zealand who was brutally stabbed 216 times, go back and listen to that. We keep it clean. It's not a disgusting display, but it had some very tender moments in that I think you'd like. So please go back and listen to that if you didn't. Now, let me look and see if there are some questions here that I can answer, and we'll look at some comments that you're making. Trillium stars, in my opinion, Lori had ill intent solo before meeting Chad. Well, if I think that's interesting, because if in fact she orchestrated Joseph Ryan's homicide, but again, think about it was during that period of time that she is married to Charles that she falls in love with Chad emotionally, and then starts to seek him out. And of course, then they get together in a number of other ways. So, well, I'll be, during the 90 days, will there be close supervision? There will, I don't know what SWEV is, but there's absolutely going to be close supervision inside of the mental health facility. And I don't believe that Mark Means will ever get his way to go in and be in charge of the counseling that's going on. But I suspect that there will be a very close count there. So let's see what Susie McFarland says. There are so many other toxins that can be lethal. Yeah, amen. Alex going to Mexico. Yeah, it's hard to guess where all of this might have originated. But the thing that's interesting is if the malachite remains consistent, what can we learn from that? So let's see. You're going to see something new here. I promised I'd try to do this. Dream of a hive. Do you think that Chad will get evidence thrown out because Lori is not in the same trial? It's interesting. I don't know. I mean, if you caught my video a week or so ago, I talked about spousal privilege, and as long as they're married, they can't be forced to testify against each other. My question became, if they divorce, and since some of these homicides occurred before they were married, could the prosecution successfully argue that they don't meet the spousal privilege? And that's the angle I would be pushing if I were the investigator in this case. Is okay, you might be married today, but when these murders of JJ and Tylee and Vallow now and Tammy Daybell were committed, you hadn't married yet. So does the spousal privilege exist for you? And my gut says that would be an angle you could argue a little bit. It would be interesting to see what they do. So let's see. Sunshine Daydream, in my opinion, who do you think is the mastermind behind the evil in this massive multi-state case, Lori or Chad? And thank you. So kind of you to say you love the channel, Sunshine. Thank you. So, that's really the question, isn't it? One is a big old batch of gas, and one is this really hot flame, and somehow they came together. My gut impression is that I kind of look at, I don't want to personalize things, but I look at Chad as just kind of a galumping kind of guy. And somehow Lori became infatuated, and maybe she really believed he could escort her directly to heaven, or maybe she believed, one of the things I've seen cult leaders do over and over again is if they can convince the members that they have a special dispensation about them. You were this great angel in heaven, or you have lived a previous life and did great things. People will step up and really try to live up to this thing. And so was Lori just infatuated with him, believing he truly did have some connection with his God? And folks, I keep saying his God because it's not the God I believe in that would suggest any of this stuff, nor the one that I think any of you believe in. So, but somehow she is infatuated by this. I'm wondering what on earth she saw in Chad Daybell connection-wise other than something like that. And then I think on his side, he's galumping along in life and by many people's account, a pretty blonde woman who is snuggling up to him just kind of makes his brain go wacko, and he chases after her. And that makes pretty good sense to me too. So I'm kind of rambling on about this a little too long probably, but anyway, that would be kind of my thought along that is I'm still waiting to try to see what happened. I think Lori was attracted for different reasons than Chad was attracted, but these two wacky personalities collided, and then there was this explosion. And so I'll see what some of you say here. Why haven't Tammy's autopsy results been released, Glam Dolly? I think because it would be really dumb to tip your hand until you had to. Remember, that was done in a grand jury, so nothing had to be put in front of the public or in front of the defense during a grand jury. So the defense is learning all this now new as part of discovery. And you saw yesterday 169 pages we were hoping would start to be released about discovery that would tip the state's hand on what's going on. And then in an 11th hour move, the state blocked that, sealed the document. And so only the defense and the prosecution now know what's in there. But that would be the reason why. I hope that answers the question. That was a really good question. Thank you. This is an interesting one. Somebody mentioned, and I'm sorry, it kind of flipped through before I could get to it, but here it is. AJ Lowe, Melanie Gibbs singing like a bird. This was something that I picked up on too that I found really interesting, was that if you remember, when Pryor and Means were demanding discovery, one of the things that they included was any kind of prosecutorial negotiation that Melanie Gibb was given as part of her testimony on the grand jury. That kind of tips the hand that maybe there were some things that she knew that she shared, and the state said, well, we're not going to charge you if you testify. And this happens all the time, and sometimes it's distasteful. Again, in my book Deceived, we actually leaned on a woman who should have gone to prison for sexually assaulting children, but because she was the whistleblower, we gave her prosecutorial immunity in order to get the entire cult and arrest all of the people that we were eventually able to arrest. So sometimes you got to give a little to get a lot. And so I suspect that will be interesting to see if she was actually promised something that we didn't know about. So let's see here. Pop up some questions or chat among yourselves. I just can't thank you all enough for jumping on. I think we've got a few people that probably aren't normal people showing up to our lives and our other broadcasts. Would you please consider hitting the subscribe button and make sure you ring the bell so you get notifications when I pop something up. This one kind of cracks me up, Kills Makeup. Between this and the Mother God nonsense, I'm curious if we will be seeing anti-cult legislation. So yeah, if you get a chance, go back to my Love is One discussion. I also did a couple of episodes with Vanessa on her channel on Love is One. Again, I mean, you're cracking up over it. Think about me. I spent most of my career dealing with ritual crime, and so I look at these things, and as different as they all like to think they are, They are very much the same. It really boils down to what is the control mechanism, what is the authority structure in the cult, what is the way in which these destructive cults damage and hurt human beings in order to take care of the leadership. These cults are very frightening, and I've called this Daybell case a cult since the time we started, and I feel pretty strongly about that. Well, let's see here. You know what? Thank you, Moms, Jeans, and Crime Scenes. I wanted to actually pop this up, and I forgot all about it. If you have not been to profilingevil.com, please go there and pull up the story map on the Vallow case. It's a way in which you can explore that case from top to bottom. I think,
Thank you, subconscious.
let's see, I think I can pop that on right here. So if you go to profilingevil.com and we pop this up. Okay, if you go to profilingevil.com, at the top, there's a little tab that says Story Maps. By the way, great place. You can order the book if you want hardbound version of Deceived. You can order it there. But go to the Story Maps tab, and here you can explore a bunch of different story maps that I've done. And as you scroll through, you'll be able to find the Daybell case. And in that, in fact, you ought to spend some time and look at all of them. I mean, Ramirez is interesting. Kelsey Schelling is a case I still think of. Elisa Lamb, these are all great. If you haven't followed up on Samuel Little, the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history, you should go and look at that serial map or the story map. But let's get down here to, there we go, Chad and Lori Daybell. And in that story map, you can go in and from there, you can scroll through and pick up all kinds of information on the case and see what's going on there. So hopefully you'll take a look at that and find some fun with that. So thanks, Mom's Jeans and Blue Jeans, for popping that one up. Lily Bell asks, when will your book be made for audio? I can't wait to listen. Love from Melbourne. Hey, I was on the radio this morning in Adelaide, but great to hear an Aussie. The audio book is done. They're just tweaking, and the back office is very careful about wanting to put it out just right. And so it is moving a little slowly, but thank you, Lily Bell. And I think if you go to the Mapping Evil, I hope you've been there. Folks, if you enjoy podcasts, go to my Mapping Evil by Mike King. It is a podcast that takes a look at serial killer cases in the United States and a comparative killer case in Australia. It's done with an award-winning broadcaster named Tori Shepard down in Australia. It's number 3 on Apple's podcast list in Southeast Asia. So if you're in New Zealand, Australia, or anywhere from the Philippines and Jakarta and all those areas, you might enjoy that. So Mapping Evil with Mike King, or Profiling Evil, at whatever your favorite podcast platform is. So that's really kind. Thanks for bringing that up. Leah Shanna House, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. And I think this is kind of interesting. Would Lori have been another Jim Jones if she wasn't stopped? Again, this is where that kind of quirky side of me kicks in a little bit, and I think, maybe Chad Daybell's sitting in jail right now going, sheesh, I got away. Didn't happen to me, because things don't seem to work out for people that she's connected to. But anyway, to our mods, Mimi J, too great to see. I'd missed you earlier. Thanks for being here. Our mods, thank you. It is so nice to see you. Cece, why wasn't 4 shots to the chest enough to determine murder over self-defense? That's kind of an interesting question. And it seems like a lot, but when you're shooting a semi-automatic weapon, it's pretty easy to shoot quite a few rounds. And sometimes the body doesn't respond immediately when it is hit by gunfire. So I'm with you. I mean, 1 shot seems like it's enough to say there's no question it was a homicide. Whether it was a justified homicide or not has been what we've been waiting for the last nearly 2 years to resolve. But someday I guess we could talk about that. It's interesting having been in that profession and seen how some people react to gunshot wounds. Especially you get someone back in the 80s and 90s when I was still a young police officer. Methamphetamine wasn't really big, but PCP was, and somebody strung out on PCP could take multiple rounds to the chest and still be lethal. Anyway, let's see here. Laura, are you concerned about Julie Rowe's predictions about her ex-husband's death? Oh man, aren't there so many cases that would be fun to just dig into and talk a little bit about? Denise, I actually did do Deceived in my own voice, and I'll tell you, next month we're gonna do pre-sales for 2 weeks on my new book that will be out, and we'll start talking about that next month. But I just want you to know, those of you who purchased Deceived, how much I appreciated that. You can continue to purchase it. For all of you who are visiting for the first time, I made an announcement about 6 months ago that the proceeds from Deceived are going to build a children's justice center, a children's advocacy center. We were able to make a large donation to get the building fund started. And then we made a donation to the Victims' Rights Council. My wife and I just didn't feel like that was revenue that we should take, knowing the horrors that the children went through, who are the reason for writing the book. So if you buy Deceived, know that you're not funding the Diet Dr. Pepper Fund or anything else. It's going to help. So I really appreciate you doing that, because it's been very touching for us to do that. Wow. Duckin' Felonies, new subscriber, and thanks for that kind super chat. That's so nice. And this is nice. Now, many people, Jen Lowe, would say, I'm so boring, my voice would put you right to sleep. So maybe cathartic and some kind of a depressant are the same thing, but that's really nice. I've never wanted on this channel, nor in my career, to sensationalize the brutality of crime. I love the behavior of crime and understanding why offenders do the kinds of things that they do. But I don't believe that it needs to be sensationalized or the gore needs to be discussed. In fact, in Deceived, if you read the book, folks, while it talks about more than 4,000 counts of rape and sexual assault of children, you'll never hear of one of those being described other than saying that there were assaults that occurred. I just don't see a sense in it. So that's very kind. Thanks for saying that. So let's see. There's a question here, and then we'll see if there's anything else. Jody, will Lori's attorney automatically be her attorney for Charles' murder? Plus, wasn't she and Chad already close when Charles was murdered? Yes, in fact, they were close. And the question is, I have no idea, although I expect, since Means is now being paid by the public defender monies, the state is paying for her attorney now, if you didn't catch that. When she rolls to Arizona, I would suspect that either Means will pitch that he needs that money, which doesn't seem practical, or she'll get a localized attorney, and it will be, again, probably paid by you and me. Shyla, thank you for the Diet Dr. Pepper Fund. I've got my prescription with me. I appreciate it. So that's really kind of you to do that. Thank you so much, Shyla. That's really nice. Let's see. Jennifer Mack. Yeah, if you got a chance, if you go to yesterday's video that was released, I talked about Summer Wells and shared some of my thoughts in that case. I hope you got to watch that. And again, I look at cases a little different than others. What I want to talk about tomorrow is the actual press video of Candace's mom and dad talking, and again, talk a little bit about these registered sex offenders and the new information about the red pickup truck. And I'm trying to normalize that data in a way that I don't point any fingers unnecessarily. But I did find out of the 45 sexual predators who are on paper for sexual offenses against children and adults, I haven't weeded it down to which ones are specific to children, that 4 of those 45 have red trucks. So that was interesting, given that that was a piece of evidence that was released in the media that I thought would be kind of fun to follow up on. So let me see what else we got going here. Oh, Lily Bell, you are so kind. You know what? I was so blessed with an amazing career. I mean, I had the opportunity to work with some of the most amazing people, and for nearly 30 years to interview some of the most horrendous criminals that the United States and some countries have seen. I mean, I think back talking to Dennis Rader, BTK, the Bind'em torture killer, working with Lieutenant Landwehr from Wichita Police Department for many, many years on who BTK was, and creating friendships like that. Sitting in San Quentin prison talking with Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and many others. It's kind of weird. The other day I spent time with a religious nut who, with his brother, under the direction of their God, murdered 2 people, and we've maintained contact for 30 years. I've interviewed him on a number of occasions, and I actually interviewed him in prison a few months ago as part of a video that I hope to cut soon on, again, this religious mentality and put it out. So that's really nice. Thanks so much. Enough yammering about me and that. But let's see. So this is kind of interesting, Wendy. I'll just add to what you're saying here. Mark Means would have to be licensed to practice in Arizona. But if you look at what's happened with Rob Wood, he's been able to bring in a prosecutor from back east to assist in this case, and they actually can give them like a deputized special anointing to prosecute law under the guise of another attorney who is licensed in that state. So we might see that happen in a case like this, and it would certainly make good sense to try to keep Means, who understands the case, than to start zero and build up a rapport and information. But there are some ways to kind of slip through and do that. Somebody said that Ron did a little bit on Summer Wells, and I'm grateful because these YouTubers are all friends and have a great deal of respect for Ron. He's a good man. It'll be interesting. And Suzanne, yeah, Chris was part of Profiling Evil, wanted to do his own thing, and he's gone off and I think he's knocking it out of the park and having fun. And the cool thing is we all do it a little differently. So we're really fortunate. Let's see. Tiffany, I would love you to do a discussion or study on the local serial killer here from my hometown, BTK. Oh, didn't we just talk about BTK? So that's Dennis Rader. Tiffany, I'm one of the few people that ever interviewed Dennis Rader. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting him mixed up with Robert Ben Rhodes. I didn't interview Dennis Rader, but I worked closely with Lieutenant Kenny Landwehr from Wichita Police Department on that case. And just for whatever it's worth, I actually, with my colleague Greg Cooper, determined that Rader, or the killer BTK, was probably a police officer or a field like police officer. And it was interesting when he was finally arrested that he was an animal control officer. So that was kind of one of those fun wins that you get every once in a while. So anyway, let's see. Laura L., thanks for the live streams. Hey, thank the back office. They pushed me out on the ledge here, Laura, and convinced me that I need to do that. Folks, if you haven't subscribed, would you please consider subscribing to us? And LM, thank you for that kind super chat. That's really nice. I'm trying to go back and find it to pop that up, but that's really nice. That those things are pretty darn helpful. And if you haven't considered our memberships, please consider it. Again, some of you might get a little offended because that's an outright ask for financial support, but it does help us keep the lights on and pay for all the software that's required to do these connections. You can get into that for as little as $2 a month. And what that does is opens an opportunity for you to join with other members on a once a month podcast or broadcast where we bring you on and chat one-on-one with you. And there are a couple of levels there. So please consider that. You can always donate through PayPal and Venmo and all those kinds of things. So let's see if there are any other questions, and then let's give you all back your night. I just really appreciate you all taking time. I think, Mimi, you said it well. Good night to all my fellow mods and to all of you folks. Thank you so much for what you do. It is it's really been a lot of fun. We hit our 1 year mark. The 1 year rookie mugs, I think, are now gone. And we have a big show coming up to kind of celebrate the 1 year mark. Again, I still have to get through a couple of little hiccups that we've had in the family that are kind of goofing up my schedule. But within a week or so, we should be kind of back to normal. And I'll keep pushing out some content. Make sure you're checking us out online. And to all of you, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate what has become a really enriching experience for me. And I hope educational and a little bit of fun. As we used to say when we did the Discovery Channel videos, it's edutainment. And I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much and have a great night.